Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast. Hey, it's another year, another time to make some more money, and I've got the course for you. Start the conversation, get the meeting will help your team, both business development, sales development, get into those new cold accounts, whether that function is under marketing or sales. I'll help you with that by starting organic, natural conversations, not pitching. Have people open up with you, build up a connection with them, understand your total addressable market, prioritize it, and put in a system that scales, that's predictable, that works the way you want it to work instead of the old school pitch. Believe me, I've sat through so many of these cold calling seminars, courses, books, and I've been doing it for 30 years, and it's evolved. And what I'm doing today is what's working in today's world. It works naturally, and people are just loving it, getting meetings, closing deals, and doing it without the rejection that is typically there in sales. So check it out at b2brevenue.com under the training tab. You can schedule a call with me. We can talk it over. I'll explain how it works and how we can work together on it. You can buy it per student, or I'll customize it for your particular product and team and coach you through that process. Also, if you're a sales leader and you want predictability, you want direction, momentum, and control with your deals, you can sign up for that course as well. Same type of model. A year-long access to it. It's content, community, and coaching, all included at b2brevenue.com. You can get my free ebook there on how companies make product selections. That's all free. Let's get into the interview, but I want to make sure you're checking out my partners. They're in the show notes. This week, it's Pipedrive and CoVideo. Pipedrive is the new CRM. It's been out for 5 years. I've been using it forever. I love that. It's connected up with your email, your calendar, and now they have team capabilities. CoVideo is the video email system. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. It's the way to break into new accounts. It's so much more engaging than text. Check them out. Also, make sure you're checking me out on LinkedIn, Brian G. Burns on LinkedIn. Let's get into the interview. I'll sum it up at the end. Hey, Matt, thanks for joining us today. As a way of getting started, tell us about yourself.
Yeah. Hey, Brian. Thanks for having me. Career salesperson. Now I'm the other day I told somebody I've been selling for 25 years. I shrieked as I said it. I've spent the last 15 years in the sales performance business, meaning, the traditional sales training industry, and the last 7, though, running my own business. And I'm in a joint venture with a longtime colleague of mine, where we're doing a couple of things: sales management development and highly tailored, bespoke sales development systems for large business-to-business sales forces. Go ahead.
And what's your focus now? I mean, I guess what's your real specialty? Everybody's kind of got their niche of where they really stand out. Yeah.
Well, me personally, so if you asked my partner, he would give you a slightly different answer because he's got the bespoke sales management system or sales development system work. My specialty for the last 7 years has been developing, meaning coaching and advising sales leadership teams. So for middle market and large companies, I've been working with everybody from frontline sales managers to managers of managers and heads of sales. And so that's the world I've lived in. I've been a VP of enterprise sales myself. I've been an interim chief revenue officer, and I've served in that role in a few different places. But I've really sunk my teeth into what does it take to develop, somebody who may be a really good seller into a great sales manager.
So let's dig into that. What have you found?
Yeah. Well, what I've found is, let's see, how much time do you have? No, what I've found is, making the transition from being a really effective salesperson is probably an obvious point, so I'll make it quickly. Making that transition from seller to sales manager is not easy, right? It's not just a matter of, taking a step up in the command chain and it all sort of intuitively comes to you. It turns out one of the biggest barriers to people becoming great sales managers isn't necessarily a skill thing, but there's a couple of big issues. One is kind of a mindset thing, and the other is just the reality of the job thing. first, the reality of the job is, if you go out and ask, well, I might put the question to you first, but if you go out and ask, 100 sales managers from all over the world, different levels of tenure, different industries, different levels of capability, if you'd say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Sales Manager, what's the number one problem? What's your biggest complaint about the job? Brian, what do you think they would say?
Yeah, they're busy. It's time. It's like, how do I get all this stuff done?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's some version of that, right? And I summarize it as, I don't have time to do even the really important things well, which is a shame, right? Because that means that they recognize what's important and still can't manage to make time to do it, right? Or get better at it. So that, I think, that's like the number one issue that a salesperson or a new sales manager or even somebody who's been doing the job for a few years needs to overcome. It's that no time for important things barrier. We'll probably get into detail here and what are some of the things they can do. Yeah. But I wrote a book about it, so I'm shamelessly plugging it there. But that's one of the biggies.
But because it is kind of like the hardest job, because I've done it several times. I've gone from that rep, company gets acquired, of funding. Okay, hire 5 people, but you got to train them. You got to transition the accounts, and then all of a sudden you got the VP asking for reports. Mm-hmm. And, we got to do an offsite. So for 3 days, you're going to be stuck in a room, right? And every night you come out and you get 300 voicemails, 10 of them are on fire. Mm-hmm. It's a tough role. Yeah.
I think it's akin to like being surrounded by a firing squad. It's like, I don't know where to turn here. I don't know who's going to hit me first, But you mentioned the big boss, right? Then you've got reports, you've got forecasts, you've got administrative requirements, you've got HR, compliance issues. You've got customers, right? And that's, you've got customers who will call you. And I know really effective sales managers who do everything in their power to avoid being that primary point of contact that the customer calls, right? They level jump, they skip right past the salesperson. And even no matter how hard you try, you're still going to get that customer who's going to call you to bust your chops or complain or to look for an exception or a favor. So, and here's the thing, right? While all that's going on, you're the point where the strategy meets execution, right? You're dealing with people, salespeople who are out in the field, the tip of the spear, right? Who are supposed to be out in the market selling the right things to the right people at the right time. And they're not always doing that. And you've got to be the one who helps them to see, look, these are the right opportunities here, guys. Let's focus here. Why? Well, the strategy kind of informs that, right? It tells us that there are certain kinds of customers that we want to prioritize, certain products and services that we're able to deliver really, really well. And if we sell those, we're going to be in position to sell more to customers because we didn't have to bend over backwards and twist and turn just to deliver this custom thing that I know you really want to sell, but you really shouldn't, right? So there's this constant negotiation going on between, the needs of customers, the needs of salespeople, the needs of the business, the needs of executives, and you can't say no to any of them,
So let's dig into the book. I mean, I like the idea of cadence because I equate that to habit, where predictability, systems, as opposed to fire drills.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, a rhythm, right? There's another word. I'll use those two words interchangeably. There's a certain rhythm to our business, and as a sales manager, you have a choice to make. If you're going to establish a cadence or an operating rhythm for the team, are you using that cadence to make sure that the team is focused on the right things, that they're prioritizing their effort toward the right opportunities, the right issues, the right customers, right? Because the alternative is you let the pace be dictated to you. And given all of those demands that we were just talking about, right? What kind of life would that be, right? You get up every day not knowing which bullet am I going to have to dodge, which fire am I going to have to put out, and same goes for my people, right? Which issue am I going to have to help them fix? Which opportunity are we going to have to crash down on because we didn't do a very good job in the beginning? And so the idea of having a cadence means that we've established some discipline, We have clear expectations about how we plan and execute and review and plan some more. And that's all got a certain place in time. And so, I tell people, look, if you really want to figure out what your sales managers and therefore your salespeople prioritize, ask them to open their calendar right now. Look at the calendar and ask them to point out to you where they have recurring events like, opportunity planning sessions with each of their reps, or, quarterly or monthly strategic account reviews. Like, where are they? And if those things, if their answer is, well, we talk every day and we do those things as we need, I would call, hey man, that's BS, right? That you can't run a sales team like that. You must have a certain cadence where you're making sure that those important things are happening. Because if they're not planned and they're not on the calendar, they're like so many other things that just get overcome by events. They just don't happen. Right? And so they're so critical to success. They've got to be part of a cadence. Sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, we have to move away from that reactive fire alarm based, no matter how important it is, to proactive time management, time blocking, and systems. And it's true with reps too. But reps can kind of get away with it because they'll follow a big deal. They'll hunt it down for a month, then take vacation and come back.
Right.
A manager can't do that.
No, that's exactly, and that relates to the second barrier I was gonna mention, right? As a rep, you grow up as a seller, and let's face it, if you're hitting your number, right? If you're a top performer, a lot of sales managers will tend to leave us alone. And it's okay if we're a little bit undisciplined, and it's okay if we go quiet for a few days, and it's okay if we don't comply with the rules, right? But now, hey, Brian, congratulations, you're a sales manager now, Yeah. And so one of the things that you have to, it's a huge mindset shift, which is, okay, the whole performance thing. When I was a rep, it was about me, right? It was about what I could deliver. If I delivered the number, I was 150% of quota. Everybody loved me. I was good, right? And it was all about me. But as a sales manager, one of the things you realize, hopefully, or you should realize very early on is, hey man, it's not about you anymore, right? That's actually one of the more significant things that I see, again, newer, and even people who've been in the job of sales management 2, 3, 5, even 10 years, believe it or not, where they haven't come around to that notion that success in this job is not going to be about me, right? It's obviously it's about the team's performance or the whole organization's performance. And yet I see men and women who are promoted into frontline sales management roles who wrestle with that. And you ask them how they measure success, and the answer is all, me, and I want the organization to see what I've done, and I want to be recognized for my capability and my contribution. And I'm hearing that and I'm thinking, oh boy, this is going to take a while, right? We're going to have to get this person to realize that the only way that you can consistently deliver the number, grow a scalable, winning business that grows year over year, is to shed that notion of, that it's about you, because it isn't.
It isn't, and it can be on one deal and one quarter maybe, but that doesn't scale. And until you can work through other people and with other people, instead of trying to be MacGyver, that last week of the quarter, it just doesn't scale. And you'll never get out of that fire drill lifestyle. Right.
I've been involved in a number of there's stories in the book, a few of them that relate specifically to this, but I'll just speak to the idea generally that the sales manager who gets out of that mode, who eventually realizes, oh, okay, this isn't all about me. It doesn't, the delivering the quarterly number, the annual number is not on my shoulders. This is about me developing my team, providing support to them at certain points, right? In those scenarios where I know I can create some value and insight for them, where I deliver value to their process, that's what I'm going to focus on. And I am perfectly okay being in the background to do those things, because I know that's the critical work. I'm telling you, when people realize that, it's like a 10-ton burden has been lifted off their shoulders, right? They don't have to be the guy or the gal, right? They can be the real leader, the person who is, who can take pride in the fact that a whole bunch of people, whether it's 3 or 4 on an individual, on a small sales team, or 100 in a whole organization, that when they look at that what the team has been able to achieve, which invariably is far more than what just a few could achieve on their own, the relief that people feel is palpable, right? They look at the job differently, and I've been a part of that conversion, right? With dozens, I don't know, maybe more than 100 people in sales management roles over the last few years. And for me, it's the most satisfying moment of all when you hear a sales manager say, "Okay, I get it. This was never supposed to be about me. It's totally about my people. I want them all to succeed. I want the organization to recognize how great they are and how much better they're going to be by virtue of our working relationship together." And that's cool.
Because it's a different kind of leadership as opposed to like leading a development team or a marketing team. Mm-hmm. When you're leading a sales team, they're all individual players that could care less about each other, right? Because even on the other side, maybe negative towards each other because it's a comparison.
Sure.
And so that's a very different leadership challenge. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of sales managers want them all to work together, want to sit through each other's forecast calls. And I always was annoyed by that.
Sure.
Because I could care less.
Right.
You're taking up half of my day to listen to somebody else's forecast. And they'd be like, "Oh, well, you'll learn something from it." I go, "I don't think so."
Yeah. What? Yeah. Please tell me what. Maybe tell me in advance and I can,
Yeah. Oh, financial services versus what I'm selling, no correlation.
Right. No, I think, and implied in there is that the sales manager it's the sales manager's responsibility to figure out if it's not collaboration, right? Yeah. If you and I are on the same sales team, if it's not exactly that Brian is out there rooting for me every day and we're helping each other every day, but maybe there are some lessons, there are some practices that we could be replicating, there are some mistakes we could avoid if we shared. But it's my job. If we're both peers, it would be our sales manager's job to figure out how the heck do I make it so that the lessons, the issues that Brian's been able to figure out, the opportunities that Matt's been able to win. I mean, how do we take all that and synthesize that into a system or some methods that we can replicate? And then again, that comes right back to the cadence, right? So how do we create this sort of team rhythm, the team cadence where that learning gets shared, it gets applied in the proper context, and where I'm guiding people in such a way as they realize, wow, there's real value in learning from each other, rather than, just, hey, let's just get everybody in the room and pour through the forecast for 4 hours. I've been in those too, right? They're brutal.
Yeah,
they're absolutely brutal.
It's time efficient for the manager, but time inefficient for the reps.
Right. Another version of it isn't about me, right? So the manager who doesn't get it, right, is going to convene. The manager who doesn't get it is going to convene the group and, hey, let's just go through this because I have to do it anyway, guys, right? Yeah. The manager who does is going to look at that and say, all right, I don't think there's a lot of value in everybody being in the same place, and yet there may be some lessons or some things that we're discovering in our pipeline that would be useful for people to know. Maybe there's a 15-minute window where I'll convene the team and help them to see some of the lessons that are right there in our pipeline data, So it's just, again, it's the mindset. And so those are the two critical things. How the heck do I get over this no time for important things barrier? And, it isn't about me anymore thing, right? But it takes time. Like this is, I think it's analogous to a golf swing, right? It's not, there is no one swing that works for everybody. There are, some different elements to the swing that you have to master. And what I've found is in coaching managers over the years is you really have to diagnose and take some time to figure out, like, how are those two issues, if they're playing out at all, how are they playing out? And how do we need to attack that? Yeah. With this particular human, because he or she has a different perspective on their job than any other human does. So it's fascinating work. It's a load of fun. And the thing, again, is most satisfying is when they realize, oh, okay, I can actually overcome those barriers.
And have you seen what I've seen? And my vantage point is much more from the individual contributors than it is from the leaders. Pretty much ubiquitous, I hear about KPIs and dashboards being paramount to effectiveness and engagement with customers.
Tell me more. In terms of how an individual contributor would use those things?
No, but how the managers manage to them versus, because we used to have the ride-alongs. We used to have kind of managers involved. And ever since the dashboard came about 10 years ago, people were just riding that. I think there's I understand. Yeah. I think there are managers today that they're just desk jockeys, right? They spend their entire day looking at a dashboard that's got activities. It's got mostly activities, not much else. Maybe it's got some outcome metrics, right? And I think we would all look at that and say, well, that's not exactly, that's not exactly what you should be doing with that, with that data. So I'll break it down, right? I have a strong opinion about KPIs I'll get to in a moment, but I think the general principle is, as a manager, you should be using data, information on a screen to inform your choices about how you want to coach and develop your people. Not to use those metrics on a screen as a measuring stick or a stick to beat people with, The other thing about how frontline managers use KPIs is, and this is true especially in larger corporate sales organizations where those KPIs, those metrics have been, formulated by someone off in the distance, right? Someone at corporate, maybe it was the head of sales, maybe it was someone in finance, right? We've seen that, where that frontline manager doesn't actually even understand what the KPI was there to measure in the first place, or what problem were we trying to solve as a business when we hatched up that KPI. Yeah. Quick story, really super quick. Just had a conversation with a client within the last couple of weeks where it was someone out in the field lamenting a new KPI that had just been laden upon them, when they had done a fair amount of work over the course of a year to 18 months to narrow their KPIs from like 12 literally to 3, at my behest, right? Saying, look, we've got to have only a few things we're measuring, guys. So they did that. They narrowed the range of key performance indicators, and then all of a sudden, someone in finance came along and said, you know what, I'm not sure that our people in the field are as productive as we'd like them to be. So we need you to make sales per person, sales per rep, an important metric. Now, mind you, this was an organization that had gone through and had cut the sales force over time. They'd made their sales organization and sales process more efficient. And so they were about as productive a sales organization as you could find. But they were concerned that they weren't seeing production from certain regions and certain people in the business, and laid this KPI on the whole business. And so what it did was it created a lot of confusion for this particular manager I was talking to, and I imagine probably every other frontline manager, because they didn't know what to do with it. They were going to be held accountable for more production per rep, and they had absolutely no idea what else they were supposed to do to get more production out of people. Right? So it was a case of the managers needing to know which KPIs really matter and which ones don't. Right. So I think that's the key, right? So if you're the kind of manager who understands that this information needs to drive my decisions about how I develop my people, where I can provide support to them, that's really of value, then it's really easy to set aside those nonsense KPIs that come out of left field because they don't add any value. And that's it. You get observer effect, meaning if I expect you to do 50 calls and I tell you that, it's very easy to hit the dial button 50 times.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean you did anything. right? And I think that disconnection, and you know where it all comes from, because at the beginning of January, there's 50 sales experts that say, take your quota, divide it by the number of work days, divide it by the average deal size. And I go, I've never seen that work. If it worked, I think I would have saw it in 25 years.
Yeah.
You know, it's all about being a detective.
Right.
If somebody committed a murder in your town, okay, there's 50,000 people in the town. How many people can I talk to per day? That's not how you find a murderer.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting analogy. But yes. But it's true. Yeah.
True. Because it's brain work. It's not just backburn, digging. Mm-hmm. Now, let's get to your book. What would people get out of the book, and who's it ideally targeted at?
Yeah, it's ideally targeted at the people in sales management roles, not only people who are new to sales management, but people who are, still struggling with how do I overcome this no time for really important things issue that I described earlier. But the thing that they would get out of it is, I get the same reaction from people because it's a relatively small volume. It's only 70 pages, kind of an easy read. I tell people you can read it from DC to Chicago, cover to cover, easy, right? But the thing that they would get out of it is every chapter, by the way, begins with a story, right? So this is not simply an academic conceptual sort of book. It's, hey, look, here's a situation that is a common situation. And it's a challenging one where, let me tell you about Jeff, right? He overcame this issue by doing X, and here's what he was able to achieve. Simple story. He had a goal. Here was the obstacle. Here was the resolution. And then the rest of the chapter is about the principles, right? What are the principles then that you can apply that don't require that you're Jeff, right? But that you can repeat. So we're dealing with things not only like addressing that no time for important things barrier, but we're also talking about some of the other more difficult things that people tend to struggle with, which is how do I influence my salespeople, right? How do I get them to behave the way I want them to behave? How do I make better use of the data and the metrics like you and I were just talking about? How do I use that to better guide my sales team? How do I make sure my people are focused on the right opportunities? So it's a very practical read. And at the very end, the thing that they would get out of it is a chance to consider what are the things that I might need to do differently in all of those areas. Not that you can change in all of those areas all at once, but what are the things that I can start doing today that will make a difference to the team's operating rhythm or cadence? What are the things that we can do what are the things that we can stop doing that are getting in the way of our operating as effectively as we could? So that's, I think, what they'll get out of it. It's a very practical, kind of a field book feel to it.
Excellent. And where do people go to connect with you and learn more about your company?
They can, the company is Specialized, with the D at the end, Sales Systems, and we're at specializedsalessystems.com. And no, we couldn't come up with a longer domain name, Brian.
You were able to get that URL?
They can find me personally, LinkedIn, Matthew McDarby. And then the book, obviously, in print or on Kindle on Amazon.com. Again, the book is The Cadence of Excellence. The subtitle is Key Habits of Effective Sales Managers.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that. Hey, make sure you check us out on LinkedIn. And B2B Revenue is the website. You get the free ebook there. You can learn about the courses. You can also check out my YouTube channel, Brian Burns Sales Podcast on YouTube, where I store both these podcasts, my videos that I do daily on sales and marketing tips, all the webinars are hosted there. So if you ever get lost and you don't know where to go, Brian Burns Sales Podcast on YouTube is a great place to be. And you can sign up to get on my calendar at B2B Revenue under training, and we can talk over your sales and marketing situations about getting you into your dream accounts in a fast, natural, organic way. And if you happen to see my content fly by on LinkedIn, I'd really appreciate a like or comment or a share, and we'll see you next time.